Okay, so imagine this, right? A politician gets convicted of a crime. Then, boom, big comeback.
Mhm.
It's like something out of Bollywood.
Yeah.
But this is actually causing some serious debate, especially in India,
Right.
because their Supreme Court is trying to figure out, like, should convicted politicians be banned from running for office, like, forever?
Oh, wow.
And you might think, well, that's India's problem.
Yeah.
But it brings up some pretty big questions about democracy and trust and accountability, you know?
Yeah, it does. It does. It really kind of shines a light on these big questions when you see it happening, somewhere specific, like India.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, in India right now, if a politician is convicted, they can't run for office for 6 years after they finish their
Oh, I know.
sentence.
Okay.
But there's this petition going to the Supreme Court that wants to make it a lifetime ban.
A lifetime ban.
Yeah, and it's causing a lot of controversy.
I bet. It really makes you think about, like, how we see our elected officials. Like, are they really upholding the values we expect?
Exactly. And the guy who filed the petition, advocate Ashwini Kumar Upadhyay, he says that letting convicted criminals be in charge just totally destroys public trust.
Right, right. Makes sense.
And he compares it to like government employees. Like if they get fired for corruption, they're banned for life from government jobs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So he's like, why shouldn't the same thing apply to the people making the laws, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, is there a double standard? It sounds like it.
Now, the government's really fighting back against this lifetime ban idea.
Oh, really?
And they have some interesting arguments, I gotta say. Like, first of all, they say the 6-year ban is already in the Constitution, so why change it?
Okay, yeah.
And they say the law is there to start people from committing crimes, but it shouldn't be too harsh.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
They even compare it to regular criminal law. You know, most sentences have a time limit.
So they're basically saying even politicians deserve a second chance, like everyone else.
Yeah, kinda. But then the guy who filed the petition, he brings up this really interesting point. What if we leave this decision up to Parliament?
Okay.
A lot of the politicians there might have criminal records themselves.
Yeah.
So are they really going to vote for stricter laws that could hurt them?
Good point. It's like, could the system be working to protect itself?
Exactly. So the Supreme Court's in this really tough spot.
Oh, okay.
If they go with the government, they're saying, hey, people get to choose who they want as leaders,
Right.
even if that person has a criminal past.
Yeah.
But if they agree with the petition, they're making a statement. They're saying ethical leadership and public trust are super important.
That's a tough one. And is this unique to India? Or does this like happen in other democracies too, where there are these conflicts of interest, where people in charge, maybe they're not acting ethically?
That's a great question. And here's something to think about. Our sources say that a lot of politicians in India and around the world actually have criminal records.
Wow, really? A lot.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So it makes you wonder, like, do voters even care?
Yeah, do they, like when they're voting, are they even thinking about it?
Do they just vote for the person they like or the party they support? Or is a candidate's past actually important to them?
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much that whole thing affects, like how much people trust democracy in the first place.
Yeah, totally. And maybe this isn't just about what's going on in India.
Maybe not.
Maybe it's a sign that we all need to think more carefully about who we vote for.
I mean, yeah, totally. Like, is it more important that someone has a clean record, or are there other things that matter more?
It's complicated for sure. This case is happening in India, but it shows a problem that democracies everywhere have.
Oh, yeah.
How do we balance the rights of individuals with the need for ethical leaders that people can trust?
It's a tough balance to strike.
It really is. And it's not just about laws and courts. It's about the values we choose as a society. What do we think is most important?
Yeah. What do we want our leaders to be like? And what are we willing to accept?
Yeah, it really makes you question, like, what are our expectations? What are we willing to just, like, ignore? And what does that mean, down the road?
Exactly. And this whole situation in India, it's like a mini version of these bigger issues that are happening everywhere. It's not just their problem.
You mentioned voters before. Do we actually know what they think about candidates who have criminal records? Like, is there any research on that?
Well, it's kind of tricky. But some studies show that voters will try to find ways to explain their choices. Like they might say the crimes weren't that bad, or it was all political, or they might just focus on something else they think is more important.
So maybe we don't always vote for what we say we want.
Yeah, maybe there's a disconnect there. Like this one study found that in some places, people are actually more likely to vote for someone with a criminal record if they think that person is strong or can get stuff done for the community.
Like a Robin Hood kind of thing, where it's okay if they broke the rules because they're helping people.
Could be. It shows how voters are thinking about what they need right now.
Which makes sense in a way. But it's also kind of scary if you think about what it means for democracy and the rule of law, you know?
For sure. If we keep ignoring these ethical problems, it becomes normal. Like people in power can get away with anything.
And then nobody trusts the system anymore.
Yeah. People get cynical and they don't care anymore.
So how do we fix it? If people are voting for whoever they think will help them, how do we make ethical leadership more important?
I think we got to talk about it more. Openly and honestly. We can't pretend it's not happening. We have to look at it and challenge our own biases and, ask ourselves the hard questions and our leaders, too.
It's easy to get caught up in all the political fighting and forget about the bigger picture.
Yeah. And we need to give voters the information they need, like reliable sources that can help them understand what a candidate has done in the past and what it all means, so they can make a good decision when they vote.
It's about having an educated public, people who know what's going on and care enough to make a difference.
Exactly. A healthy democracy needs citizens who are informed and who hold their leaders accountable.
You know, this reminds me of something I read about second chances. The idea was that societies that give people a real chance to redeem themselves are stronger in the long run.
Interesting. That connects back to what the Indian government was saying, right? Right. About punishment needing to be balanced.
Yeah. So how do we balance second chances with the need for trustworthy leaders and a government that people believe in?
It's tough, but maybe the answer is to find ways to help people change and to hold them responsible at the same time.
What do you mean?
Well, instead of just banning people forever, maybe there are other things we could do. Like if a candidate has a criminal record, maybe they have to do some ethics training or community service, or maybe they have to apologize publicly and show they really regret what they did.
That's an interesting idea. It's like saying, we know what you did, but we also think you can be a good person.
Right. And it creates a system where people are encouraged to change, but they still have to answer for their actions.
It's a hard topic, but it's important to talk about.
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just about politicians and elections. It's about the kind of society we want. Do we want a society where honesty and doing the right thing are important?
So how do we build that kind of society, especially in a world where it seems like everyone's just looking out for themselves?
It's a long process, but I think it starts with education and real conversations.
Like teaching people about being good citizens and making ethical choices.
Yeah, and also teaching them how to think critically, how to filter all the information out there and figure out what's true and what's not, how to see bias and make good judgments.
And when you say real conversations, you mean places where people can talk about these complicated things without yelling at each other.
Exactly. We need to get out of our little bubbles and actually listen to each other, share our different perspectives, and find some common ground.
It's about understanding each other, even if we don't agree.
Right. And realizing that we're all in this together. What we do, the choices we make, they all have an impact.
So we have to take responsibility for our actions and know that our choices matter.
Exactly. We can create positive change if we work together.
It's pretty cool to think that we can all be part of making things better no matter who we are or what we do.
Absolutely. And it starts with each of us living by the values we want to see in our leaders and in our world.
It's not just about voting for the right people, it's about being the right people ourselves.
Exactly. It's about walking the walk and creating a world where doing the right thing is just what we do, not something special.
Wow, this conversation has really changed how I see things. We started with this case in India, and now we're talking about some pretty deep stuff about human nature and what it means to live in a democracy.
It's amazing how one little thing can lead to such big thoughts.
It shows how connected everything is.
And that even small choices can have big effects.
It reminds us that we all have a part to play in shaping the future.
And that the power to make things better is in our hands.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. It's been really interesting. Let's go back to this case in India for a sec. The government's basically saying, look, the 6-year ban is good enough, it's in the Constitution, and it's similar to how other laws work.
Right.
They're saying it's not the court's job to change the law, it's Parliament's job.
Right.
But then you have the other side saying, no, a lifetime ban is necessary. We need to protect the public's trust. We can't have people who've committed serious crimes running the country.
Yeah. They're really concerned about the message it sends. Like, can you really trust a system where someone who's broken the law can be in charge of making the laws.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the fact that we know a bunch of politicians, not just in India, but all over the world, actually have criminal records.
Yeah, and that really makes you think, like, what does that mean for us as voters?
Right. Like, if we know someone has a criminal past, should we still vote for them? Or is that like a deal breaker? What are the things we should be thinking about when we're deciding who to vote for?
It's tricky, right? There are no easy answers. But these are really important questions to think about if we care about democracy.
Definitely. So we've talked about this case in India, but this is something that affects everyone, everywhere. It's about the kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah, and the kind of leaders we want.
So we want you, the listener, to keep thinking about this. Maybe even do some research and see what's going on in your own country.
What kinds of laws do you have? What do people think about these issues?
It's about being informed and involved.
Because in the end, it's up to us to make sure our democracy is strong. We need to hold our leaders accountable and make sure they're doing the right thing.
Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive today. It's been a great conversation.
It really has.
Keep thinking about these things, and we'll see you next time.